Hey guys, welcome back. Just some update about the market from yesterday's session, right? So, Monday session on 12th of August, we can see that there was actually a very sharp push up of Nvidia, right? This was in the first hour or so. Okay, then subsequently, of course, it was ranging, right? This was after the first hour, it was ranging, and then it closed slightly higher than the opening, right? So this was the market performance. Now we can see that over here in the first hour, it's actually a bit choppy, right? You can see that there were wicks that formed. So it actually pushed up to about 108, right, in the first 15 minutes before actually coming down to close at 106, right? And then also, we can see that for the next 15 minutes candle, right, this NVIDIA actually pushed lower, right? So there was actually a red candle, but it didn't manage to drop down, right? So it actually continued to push up. Okay, and subsequently on the third candle itself, right, it was a very sharp push from around 107 all the way to about 110, right? So this was actually a very nice candle. Although in the first half an hour or so, it was actually quite choppy. Right, so this was actually one of the better performance yesterday, right? In terms of the gains, you can see on the side here that Nvidia actually went up by about 4%. Right? If you look at the overall heat map of the whole US market, right, this was actually one of the highest gainers, right? Uh, Generally. Okay, so others were more or less than 4%. Okay, so looking at the market overall itself, we can see, let's take a look at SPY as well. Sorry. So in terms of SPY, we said last week, right? So if you were to look at last week's video, right, we said that, let's come on to the 1-day chart. Okay, so if you guys recall, last week Monday there was a very sharp dump, right? So this was the case, and then after that it went up for the next 5 days or so, right, to come to about 533, and yesterday, right, it was at around this level, so it maintained around this level. So you can see it's almost coming back to about 537, 540, right, which is where the dumping, right, before the dumping happened, right, SPY was around this level. Okay, so it's actually recovered quite well, right, over the last week or so. Okay, if we look at the 15-minute chart, right, just for yesterday's performance, we can see that generally SPY, because it is an index, right, it consists of different sectors, it consists of different stocks. So the volatility is likely to be less, right, compared to like individual stocks. And interestingly, you can see that over here yesterday, while Nvidia was actually pushing up, right, it was actually the exception rather than the norm. So for the overall market, there was actually quite a clear dumping, right, from about 534 all the way to about 531, 530, right, in the first half an hour. Okay, then subsequently, of course, it went up, right, and then recovered, pushed past, came to about 535, 536 level. Okay, so usually in the first 15 minutes or so, we are more likely to see fake outs, right? Where it could be very volatile because it's the first 15 minutes where the market just opened and the traders are coming in, right? Everyone's sort of like trying to buy up or to sell, right? Very frantically. So it's more of this behavior, and we may see some sort of very mixed signal or confusing signal as to how it should be, right? So of course, on some days it's very clear cut, right? It's either pumping or it's either dumping because of certain news. But let's say in this case, it's probably right, like in the first half hour, it was actually quite a bearish trend, and subsequently it actually pushed up, right? So I would say that over here, generally, it's more to do with sentiments, right, rather than any specific news. Okay, then just to share this as well. So this was the pre-market trade plan, right? They actually did up yesterday, right? A simplified one. So in this case, because we want to be very clear and focused, right, when we go into the market, so we shouldn't be aiming aimlessly, right, for different stocks to trade and not knowing what we are looking at, right, just picking any random stocks. So in this case, before the market actually opened, right, so what I did was actually scan through my my list, right, of stocks, and in From there, we actually went to zoom in on specific stocks that were moving quite nicely in the pre-market. Okay, so over here, Nvidia, right? This was one of it. So yesterday on Monday itself, right? You can see it's Monday. The pre-market wasn't that exciting, right? But this was one of the higher movers, right? In the pre-market on my list. So then I was shortlisting it. I put it down in this checklist here, and just made some notes. Okay, so we can see that we have earnings coming up, right? So why is this important? Because this is happening in about 10 odd days time. And the other thing is, with earnings coming up, the IV for the contracts are probably going to be higher. Okay, so IV would be the implied volatility. So because of the earnings coming up, right, traders are more likely to trade more. Some may predict that, let's say in this case, Nvidia is probably going to pump, right, because the earnings has been quite good for the last few quarters. Some may feel that it is nearing its end, right, starting to dump. So a lot of such movements here, making the stock price more volatile and therefore the contracts, right, to be more expensive. So in this case, if I'm going to trade, right, let's say the same week or the next week expiration contracts, then the IV is going to be higher. So that will be another thing to take note of, right? To be careful about when we are trading, right? These contracts, because it's going to be more expensive, and if you're going to hold it overnight, right, then it's going to be less likely that will profit because of the tether as well as a potential IV crush, right? You're going to hold it for too long. Okay, and of course did some chart analysis here as well, right? So looking at certain key levels, right? Let's say 90 as the lowest level, last week Monday's heavy dumping, and then also looking at things like say the highest, this was as of yesterday, right? So about 105, and then also recent times was about 140-ish, right? So if you're hitting these key levels, we have to be careful to trade, right? Because it may reject sharply, it may push through a lot. Okay, so we may want to take off some profits, right, if it happens to reach these levels soon. Okay, and Oracle was another stock that also came up, right? So this was another stock that I saw that had some potential, because on Friday it actually moved quite nicely. Unfortunately, yesterday on Monday it didn't move as much, right? So what happened here is that I actually went on to shortlist these two stocks, and I was quite laser focused in the sense that I wasn't looking at other stocks as much. Okay, so we are looking out for news, catalysts that could actually push the stocks in either directions. We are looking at undervalued stocks, right, or underpriced, because in this case, Nvidia, it is actually quite high. It was quite high, and then now that it's come down substantially, right? So there's actually a lot of room to pump, and earnings is coming up, so the volatility may help as well, right? So it could continue pushing up. And also, in this case, if you are trading next week contract, right, or this week contract, to keep it more affordable, because Nvidia is currently about 100 plus, right? So the contracts are also relatively on the cheaper side. Okay, so these were some considerations as that came through my mind yesterday, right? So I wasn't looking at other stocks, and then over here just looking at specific ways to enter, right? So what's your entry criteria? What's your exit criteria? So if you relate back to the stock itself, we can see that the first few trades, right, were actually happening here, right, in the first half an hour. So besides those shortlisted counters, right, those stocks to look at, the other thing is also to see whether how many trades we are entering each day, right? So in that sense, because we know that once the market opens, our discipline tends to weaken, right? As at least for myself. So before the market opens, it have to be very clear, right? How many trades maximum that we can enter today? It could be 3, it could be 4, right? So we don't want to be, let's say if we are a rifleman, right? Or we don't want to be shooting aimlessly. We want to be very focused. So in that case, I restricted myself to about 2 to 3 trades, right? And at any point in time, my maximum positions will be just 2 trades. So I will be able to pay more attention to them. So in this case, because let's say here, right, we can see that Nvidia actually pushed up quite nicely, right? And then I was taking a call, but because it later came down, right? So it turned bearish in a sense. Okay, so I had to exit my position, right? Overall, of course, if I held throughout, right, I was going to be profitable on the first trade, right? However, I didn't, right? It came down and the call was actually losing money in that sense. Okay, so to follow my trade plan, I had to cut loss, right? Because there was also a chance that Nvidia was actually going to dump, right? Because the overall market was dumping as we saw just now. So if it followed the overall market and started dumping, then it could be dangerous to hold to this contract, right? Because we are buying this week or next week's contract, right? So the expiration is coming very soon. Time decay and also volatility and all that will set in. It's going to make it reduce to zero very fast. Okay, so in order to avoid that, right, so there was a strict stop loss in place, right, to buy and also to exit, right, even though there's a loss and there may be a chance that you'll be profitable later on, right, as we saw right yesterday. However, in that case, because we are still following our trade plan, the rules we set for ourselves, so that is still being disciplined, right? And subsequently, of course, here, because at the open of the next candle, Nvidia actually did push down, right? So we took a put on Nvidia, right? Unfortunately, it didn't actually hold downwards, right? It actually rejected and started to push upwards. Okay, so in that case, again, because the second trade it triggered the stop loss, right? So I had to cut out of the position, right? So there was two losing trades, one shot, right? But of course here, because of the very nice upward trend, right? So the next two trades on calls, they were actually profitable. Okay, so in that sense, overall, right, because of the last two trades, we're able to get back our losses, right, and keep some profits for ourselves as well. Okay, so this was the overall trade analysis of yesterday, right, and also looking at what's happening in the market today. And for today itself, at in a short while's time, right now we are recording at about 8 p.m. So in about half an hour's time, the producer price index, the results. No, the producer price index is going to be announced, right, to see how inflation figures do, right, for the month of July. Okay, it could probably affect the market later on, especially when it opens. Okay, so let's see how the market performs today as well. All right, see you guys.